today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Hayley, Sperling, and Molly Stentz. Lawmakers have blocked the distribution of state funds for critical drug treatment and prevention programs. Madison's largest homeless service provider hopes to get a new home. And part of State Street will soon open as a pedestrian mall. Plus, we got a new Madison women's softball team name. And it's gonna haunt your dreams. It's Friday, April 26th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. We got a mix of local happenings and delays. Let us not delay and get right to it. Join me today is the leader of this here podcast, Molly Stentz. How are you?
Hello. So excited that the alpacas are in town.
That event was made for you. Beautiful little alpacas. And speaking of another beautiful alpaca, our newsletter champion, editor, Hayley Sperling. How are you?
Hello. You know what? I'm not mad about the alpaca comparison. They're so cute and soft and kind of just like little freaks. So I can get behind that. We love some alpacas.
Truly, it would be an honor to be called that. And I feel like my hair, I fit into that crew. Man. All right. So kicking off this week is me with a story about opioids. Gotta ask, what's the holdup? That's a question that's probably on the mind of a number of local governments in Wisconsin and drug treatment orgs who are waiting on the state to distribute opioid settlement funds. Remember the opioid epidemic? That's still very much so going on.
It's still here.
As a refresh, Wisconsin Department of Justice successfully settled a number of lawsuits against opioid manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies to hold them to account for the harm they caused during and in the opioid epidemic, and to recover some funds. Overall, they got $750 million, which is due by 2038, and a portion of that money will go to the state of Wisconsin. The Department of Health Services submitted their funding plan for that actually at the beginning of this month for that money, and they got a response. Rejected. Apparently, and I got this from Cap Time story, Aaron McGroarty. There was an anonymous objector on the Joint Finance Committee who submitted an objection to the Department of Health Services plan for how the money can be spent. Who knows why? Mum is the word. This is an anonymous objector from the committee. And I did find a statement from one of the committee co-chairs, chief of staff, that says, the Joint Committee on Finance is engaging with stakeholders to ensure our state's plan for using these settlement dollars to take the most effective approach to preventing opioid use disorders and mitigating the impact of the ongoing crisis in our state. Okay, so, what we can draw from that is maybe they think that the DHS's plan is not the most effective. I don't know. That's the word. Is there something wrong with the plan? Maybe. Hard to say what the objections are at this point. What do y'all think of this move?
Right. Well, how can you make it better if you don't say what the issue is? If you don't say what the problem is?
Yes.
That's my thing. It kind of reminds me of the U.S. Senate where any senator can place an anonymous hold on something and block it from getting to the floor. It's like,
what did I do? Can I please get constructive feedback? And so Department of Health Services, naturally, they've shared their disappointment. So as, Attorney Call and the governor's office and the rejection of this proposal. I saw that a spokesperson said that they had made an effort to meet with all the individuals on the committee to avoid something like this. This is a quote from DHS about, when they shared the plan. Quote, this is a thoughtful plan built from the advice we received through surveys, listening sessions, and roundtable discussions, as well as reviews of data and already existing programs, and by identifying the needs that still exist. To me, it just feels like if I were working for DHS, kind of like a punch in the gut. You did all of this work to say this is how it should be distributed. We're the experts on health. And I don't know, it just feels like politicizing. Even our Department of Health Services is political. Something doesn't sit right with me about that.
And a lot of the stuff that's in this plan is stuff we're already doing, right? Distributing Narcan to local governments and making sure that ambulances across the state can have Narcan to help revive people and save people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just additional help. Yeah, I mean, the plan looks very reasonable in terms of it being things that are already in place. And it looked pretty spread out. It was a lot of recipients, like across the board, different community and education touch points, like money for tribal nations and like access to fentanyl test strips, money to law enforcement agencies, lots of things that are already happening and just need assistance with the crisis that does continue. You know, pandemic really took a lot of the attention away from this ongoing crisis. So I did see a social media post from a Governor Evers spokesperson, Britt Cutterback, and it said, quote, Republicans are on day 55 of refusing to release crisis response resources to stabilize healthcare access in Western Wisconsin. Day 293 of refusing to release funding to fight PFAS statewide. And now we're delaying critical resources to respond to the opioid crisis. You know, it's hard to say. It just is this obstruction. Was there a big issue? We won't know until the anonymous person shows their face. Sorry, it's not funny, but that's my take. It's like, just show your face. Why be anonymous? What's wrong? Stand by what's wrong and tell your community of colleagues what's going on. There's something about playing politics. We know that's going to happen, but something about playing politics with health seems gross. And if that's not what's happening, say what's happening.
Right. Because how are we going to get past it? And this isn't the first time that they've done this, right? Like they've submitted this plan before. It's been rejected. Now they're back to the drawing board and the whole thing is happening again. And yet there's still no feedback on why they say no, which is just so frustrating because we could be delivering so many vital resources to people and organizations in need. So like, what's the holdup? Literally, they won't say, which is the most frustrating part. Anywho.
If you know and you're listening and you want to be an anonymous source to us, hit us up, email us at madison.citycast.fm. We'll leave it there. Let us know. We want to know. Everyone wants to know. Okay. Before we get into more news, let's take a quick break. All right, y'all. Development continues in our city.
So some more big news in Madison housing and development. This news from the Wisconsin State Journal this week. And it's kind of an interesting twist. A land swap. So y'all know Porchlight?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The largest homeless service provider in Madison. They're going to operate that new shelter that the city's building on the east side. They also operate low-income apartments across town. They have this office building on campus. It's kind of this old, nondescript brick building. It's tucked away on Brook Street, kind of like behind Granger, between University and Johnson. You could miss it. You probably don't know it's there unless you've used their services or maybe been looking for parking at Granger. So it's literally surrounded by campus buildings. Campus has grown up around them. And the building's kind of old, needs some repairs. And a developer in the area called LZ Ventures, which happens to own 2 big apartment student housing complexes next door, apparently came to them and worked out a deal. And the deal is this: give us your falling apart building that you don't want to maintain anymore and is kind of not in the most convenient location for you, and let us build student housing there, which is next to other student housing right across from, campus buildings. And in exchange, we will build you a brand new building on East Wash that people can live in. And you can have brand new offices. And we'll pay to move your folks over to East Wash. But give us that juicy campus property that you're sitting on.
Is this like Santa Claus? Like that is better. This is like this. It feels like almost emotional. That's a beautiful thing to do for people who have money. It's like, they probably will make more money in the switch, but hey, is this a model?
Yeah, I thought this was super interesting and something you don't hear about a lot. So this company is called LZ Ventures. They're founded by Madisonians, and they're the folks who built the Continental building on East Wash. It's the one on East Wash that's at the corner of Franklin, kind of by Breeze Stevens, like a big tower that looks at the Capitol. It's kind of classy.
Yeah, it's kind of classy. It's like $2,000 for a studio apartment, but it's pretty classy.
It is. It is not affordable housing. But that's their building. They own a few apartment buildings and student housing around town. Yeah, it is not affordable housing, but they are a local company. So that's what they're proposing. So they're proposing to knock down the old Porchlight building and build a 15-story, 190-unit student housing tower, as they call them, a big old building right there next to the other two buildings that they own, which are Grand Central and X01.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when those were being built. And I also remember when those were being built, and it felt almost weird to be in that area because I remember seeing Porchlight there, and I'm like, these are homeless services in this sort of like ramshackle building, and now we're building these like big old like flashy student housing, and it was just sort of this like weird dissonance sort of happening. And I'm very, I don't know, I'm pleased with the way that like this is working out. Like Bianca said, it's like Santa Claus, right? Like this works out better for everyone in the situation because with the new development that LZ will be building for Porchlight, I mean, it's going to be so much closer to like all of the homeless services that are necessary because the current building was a little bit out of the way. Like, sure, it was still downtown and on campus, but it wasn't where people were needing the services or could get access to it. So it's exciting.
Yeah, totally. It's like a block away from the Beacon. So super convenient. It's at the corner of East Wash and Blair. So right when you're like turning left to get onto John Nolan from East Wash, it's like that corner, which is
oh my God, there's not a more perfect spot.
Kind of prime real estate in Madison. Also, interestingly, next to the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce building. So that's going to be interesting, folks who
got monies, know how to do monies. Maybe
yeah,
y'all can connect.
Have a lot of money, and I'm wondering how they're going to react to low-income apartment next to them.
In your face.
Yeah, so it's going to be a brand new building, which that feels huge. It's going to have their office space. It's going to have 70 studio apartments that all have bathrooms and kitchens and air conditioning and heat. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of noteworthy about this is like no city money involved. That's the plan as it is right now, as was reported. Like no TIF district, no grants, no public funding. Like the developers worked this deal with Porchlight on their own. Now it's not a done deal. It has to go through the city process. You know, it has to get all the approvals by all of the committees. So it's not a done deal, but it seems like a pretty darn interesting plan.
It's a good deal, hopefully. And again, putting a big old 15-story student housing building right next to a bunch of other multi-story student housing buildings, like, perfect. Let's do it. Ship it. I'm done. And also the best thing about those buildings is that, like, it's high density and typically, like, not a lot of room for parking, right? Which is what we really need in this city is, like, less space for parking, more housing, and more space for students. So I'm excited. And I did just look it up because I was curious. There is a 539 square foot studio apartment available in the Continental for $1,900 a month. Available July 1st if anyone's interested.
1,900. Go get it. Go get
Hopefully
it.
the student housing will be a little bit more accessible.
Yeah.
LZ Ventures, way to be local and stand on your localism.
Yeah.
Also, that wasn't an ad, by the way. That was 100% genuine. Just like, way to go. This sounds
not
great.
an ad. I'm just doing my research.
Yeah. And as soon as you said money, I was like, there's people who might think that's an ad. It's not. It's just kudos. Thank you. We live here together and I appreciate you.
So speaking of Madison development, I hear State Street's getting a new look and the flamingos have landed.
Yes, the flamingos have landed on State Street. We are all #flocking to State Street because the city is getting ready to kick off this big pilot project to turn the 400 through 600 block of the street into a pedestrian mall this summer. And it was super exciting. So over the weekend, you may have seen hundreds of people literally out on the street painting dozens of these polka dots and like big mural pictures on the street. Well, so that was all part of this pedestrian pilot program. So if you're not familiar with that, I'll catch you up. Last year, the city approved a plan that will pretty much block all but emergency vehicles from entering the bottom half of State Street, starting at 3 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. on weekends and holidays. So essentially, turning that area into a pedestrian mall, which is super exciting. And to do this and to help encourage people to get out on State Street and get out on their own 2 feet, that's where those paintings come in. The city has put together a bunch of this public art. They're going to add more benches. They're going to add more planters. It's very exciting. And it's something that people are pretty into. The city put out like a survey for business owners to be like, what do you think of this? You know, we want to do this. We want to do this the right way if we're going to do it. And ultimately, like, everyone's super excited. There were some concerns from business owners over like, when are we going to get our deliveries in? You know, because there's a Target on State Street and they need to get stocked, and all the other businesses on State Street need to get their food delivered and whatnot, which is how the city kind of came up with that 3 p.m. and 10 a.m. timeline to cut off traffic. And there's also going to be like sometimes specific times for deliveries to be able to be dropped off. But other than that, you're free to roam the streets on your own 2 feet. Very exciting.
What about the buses?
So thank you for bringing that up, because someone actually asked me that too. And I was like, great question. Where are the buses going to go? Well, so the timing actually worked out pretty well, because if you remember last year in the summer, last June, Metro underwent like the biggest transit redesign in its pretty much history, or in the last few decades. And so with that, it pulled the buses out of the bottom half of State Street, essentially. So the buses are still going to use the 100 to 300 blocks of State Street. So that's like closer to the Capitol. But again, the timing worked out perfectly with the transit redesign so that this project could go on without worry of the buses. And BRT, when it comes in, you know, it shouldn't really make a huge difference on that end too. Like, it's getting set up right now, but with the way that the pedestrian mall is going, like, it shouldn't have an impact. So yeah, it's very exciting, and people will still be able to, like, you'll grab a bus, you can hop off on State Street and hop on State Street, but still closer to the Capitol.
So they'll turn like on Gorham and Johnson, essentially.
Yes, that's what it seems like, because traffic will be blocked off from Gorham to Hawthorne Court.
It's very exciting. I'm not going to lie. Is there any part of this that's going to be logistically confusing for folks? I had a horrible flashback memory of being an 18-year-old so excited to come to UW-Madison with my best friend, and then turning and driving on State Street.
Oh, God.
No. That was holler, and also wow, and also oops.
Yeah. No,
As an outsider, not from the city.
I get that. I was also recently in an Uber who was not from here, or who had just like recently like moved to Madison, and she drove right onto State Street, and me and my boyfriend were like, no, you can't drive here, like, you got to turn off. But
it's a big no.
So with that, I'm sure there will be a learning curve, and I'm sure there will be some confusion, but ultimately, again, like, with the painting and with the planters and with the benches, like, with all of these physical reminders, the city is really trying to make it not subtle, right? It's like, don't drive here. Like, there are people here. Again, I'm sure there will be a learning curve, because when people come down to Madison for the weekends, like for the farmer's market, whatever, like, you always see someone like trying to drive down State Street. Like, they're just never going to get it.
There are just too many cute things to look at, you know?
Right. But now you got to park the car, hop out, and walk over and look at all the cute stuff. And there's so much cute stuff. And especially like these murals, of course, a lot of them are flamingos. There's going to be some big like flamingo art that's going to be installed too, because we really can't get away from flamingos. And if you want to know why, I won't dig into it on this podcast, because I've actually written about it for Madison Minutes, and you can find that story at madison.citycast.fm. But it's exciting. And the city right now, they say the pedestrian mall is scheduled to open the week of May 6th, Right now they're saying May 8th, that's a Wednesday, is going to be the big day. And we'll see. We'll see if they can get everything off the ground then. And it's very exciting. We'll see how that goes for the summer. There's a lot of big stuff happening downtown this summer.
And will there be like little places you can eat? There's like romantic little, romantic in every sense that you can eat in this area.
Yeah, that's the thing now is with driving getting kicked off of this area, it kind of opens the door for restaurants to bump out their outdoor seating. So maybe someone will get a little romantic spot or someone can set something up out there. So yeah, the opportunities are truly almost endless. I mean, they're 2 blocks long, but endless within that 2-block vicinity.
Yeah. And honestly, when I'm thinking about romance, I'm thinking like every romantic lunch I've had on State Street, I'm talking about with my friends. Like it's just there's a vibe, of being outside on State Street. So yeah, we should go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be huge for Art Paul Schlosser.
Yes. American hero, Madison troubadour, Art Paul Schlosser. Speaking about American heroes, our new women's softball team has a name.
Yay. They got a name. They got a name.
So they're called the Nightmares. And they got this cute little horse logo. Will say it's not my pick. It was, I love that they let us all vote. So we got invested in the process. I was secretly rooting for the Thunder Chickens because that was just so dang weird. And I just loved it. I kind of understand why they didn't go with it. If you're trying to get particularly like girls interested in softball, what better than a freaking horse, right? As a logo and a mascot.
Versus a chicken. You're too chicken to play.
It's kind of cool because they did all of these things in the logo. So like the logo is almost this like Pegasus-like horse. It's a horse with wings. And there's a lot of like little, I guess, Easter eggs in there. So the horse it's in front of like this crescent moon. And so that the way that the horse's mane aligns in front of the crescent moon sort of creates this, like it looks like softball seams, which is kind of cool. It's just a cool design element. And then the wings on the horse has 5 like slots, I guess. It's got 5 feathers to represent the lakes in Madison and the city's natural beauty. So there's a lot of like cutesy stuff in there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a nice little nod to the city, to the sport. Shout out to the designers. I love crafty design like that. I think it's super cool. And I'm excited. I think Nightmares is good, I mean, as long as, again, like, I got nothing against the flamingos, but as long as you're, like, not, like, the pink flamingos, it's like, my God.
Yeah, let's move on from that.
Let's move on. So I'm excited. Like, let's bring a new animal to town. And I think Nightmares, it's, like, kind of ominous, kind of like, we're going to come and get you. Like, they're not messing around. I like it, and for an inaugural season of this sport, like, it feels very powerful. I think that this team is going to bring a lot to the city. And I'm excited to see some softball.
All right, y'all. Another great news roundup. Thank you so much for joining me. Hayley Sperling, catch you later. See you up in them emails.
See ya.
And Molly Stentz, ciao for now.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Phil Circus and Dylan Broken. Molly Stentz is our executive producer. Hayley Sperling is our newsletter editor. Remember, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with the person you'd most want to take to go see the Madison Nightmares, baby?